Hello, everyone, and welcome back to an exciting episode of our podcast, Reshape Hospitality with Tech. I'm your host, Maria, along with my co host, Kazim. In this episode, we have with us Bill Hanson, an industry leader and Vice President of Operation at Vivamee Hospitality. Bill, welcome to our podcast and thanks for being here.
Maria and Kazim, thank you very much for having me. I've been looking forward to this conversation, and yeah, let's kick it off.
So, first, let's talk about your journey in the industry so our audience can get a chance to know you better. Can you tell us some insights about your career background? Like when you started your career, what was the reason for getting into this industry, and share some of the challenges that you face along the way?
Sure, it's a good question. So thank you. So I grew up outside of Atlantic City, New Jersey, which is a hotbed for hospitality and namely the casino industry and hotel industry. Uh, Most of my jobs growing up, my first job, as a matter of fact, I was a dishwasher at a restaurant in Ocean City, New Jersey in 19, I'll save the year, but a long time ago. And,
Yeah.
I never quite left. I always worked in some segment of hospitality and
Mm-hmm.
restaurants and bars through high school and college and such. Upon graduating college, I moved back home and uh, they were opening up well, I'll say a Hard Rock Cafe in Atlantic City at the time. I had a degree in education,
Mm-hmm.
and I thought to myself, well, that looks like a cool place to work while I wait for a teaching job. And then maybe 9, 10 months into it, I was offered an opportunity to join the management training program, and at the time, I was loving what I was doing. I was
Mm-hmm.
loving training people and coaching people and such, and I viewed moving into management as an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity to teach and coach just in a different environment than I originally envisioned. Not a traditional classroom, of course. So that was how I really kicked off my career, and that was my first management job was 26, almost 27 years ago now, and just kind of always stuck with it and moved up through different ranks and such. I think you asked about a challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of things. When you first break into the industry, it can be a challenge embracing the lifestyle because it is a lifestyle that you lead. Not just the hours of work and the time of your work, but you also become ingrained in the hospitality culture in whatever city you're in. So you find yourself frequenting bars and restaurants and befriending people that work in other hotels or whatever the case may be, and you really immerse yourself in that culture, and it's very cool, can be very, very rewarding. It can be taxing when you first get into it. It is a different lifestyle, that's for sure. But
Mm-hmm.
one thing I always like to point out is back when I broke in to the industry, I would say
Mm-hmm.
that us, in terms of hospitality professionals, we weren't really held with the same regard that we are today. Uh, I bring up Las Vegas quite often as an example. You go
Mm-hmm.
to Vegas, and the entire city is built around the
Mm-hmm.
hospitality industry, and
Mm-hmm.
everybody's treated as the business leaders that they truly are. Uh, Coming up in the 90s and early 2000s, really before Food Network and things like that, that made restaurants and food and beverage and hotels and such, you know, sexier. Uh, I would say that, you know, quite often you'd be asked by a patron, so what else do you want to do? And I would think to myself, well, I I manage this $6 or $7 million operation 70 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
I do plenty. So so I think that a challenge initially breaking in was that being a business leader in hospitality wasn't always treated with the same fanfare or credibility, for that matter, as other industries were.
Thank you so much for the introduction, Bill. I really appreciate for sharing your career journey and experience with us. Speaking about your career journey, and you were also told about the challenges you faced, would you be open to telling us any important lesson you have taken from those challenges? And one more thing, what are your long-term career goals for this industry?
So you can, and a lot of us, when you first break into the industry,
Mm-hmm,
it's a non-conventional lifestyle, and you
mm-hmm,
can take it to extremes from time to time,
mm-hmm,
staying out late or having overindulging in the social elements of it. So you do, with a period of maturation, have to manage your time,
mm-hmm,
because you have to understand that we are running a business. And lessons, one of my mentors early on, I was very fortunate to have a number of good mentors. But he would talk to me often about the 360-degree view of the business. And it's, whether it's a hotel or corporate entity that you're running, whatever it is, you're not operating in a silo. You have to understand how all the pieces connect and how they all flow
mm-hmm.
together. And that's a key lesson, I think, for anyone who wants a career in this industry, no matter what level. You can be a career
Mm-hmm.
line cook, server, bartender, vice president, F&B, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
You can be all of those things, but you're going to be better if you understand how all the dots are connected.
You make a point here. We are running a business. Another thing I want to discuss here is when the world was hit by COVID, what challenges did the industry face and the opportunity do you see for its future?
So great. So at the time, I was with my previous company,
Mm-hmm,
and I was vice president of food and beverage for a large hotel group. We had 90 hotels or so. Well, I think at the time we had 70 hotels.
mm-hmm,
And so the initial challenge was to close everything down systematically and professionally, and then prepare to ramp up to reopen under new guidelines and such. Now, what did that force us to do? So everyone knows, coming out of COVID and through today, uh, we took a massive hit to the staffing levels that exist in our industry. Uh, every there I kind of joke, but it's the truth. I say there are 200% truths right now. Every city in America thinks they're the best beer town in America, and every city in America is understaffed in hospitality. Uh, and I say that in jest, but it's actually true. So what do we have to do? We had to look at creative ways to reopen all of our properties, sustain business, increase sales, because
mm-hmm,
it was a slow build coming out of COVID, and then in 20, second half of 2021 and through 2022, there was that hockey stick ramp up of pent up demand that
mm-hmm,
people came in droves to hotels, restaurants, bars, nightclubs, so on and so forth. So from an operational standpoint, we had to get creative of how could we handle the volume of guests coming in with fewer staff members. From an oversight uh, uh, management view, we had to look at, okay, how are we budgeting? All right, throw the budget out the window because we crushed the budget by June of the following year or whatever. So we really had to get agile and nimble and look at forecasting in the month for the month. I'm getting super techy or technical on this, but that is the above property view that it
mm-hmm,
really made the industry, in my opinion, realign and focus on what should always be the primary focus, which is forecast. It's how are you planning for the next 30, 60, 90 days? How are you able to be agile in the month or in the quarter for the month or quarter? and what adjustments are you making? Now, I'll go back to my first point.
Mm-hmm.
How did we do more with less staff? You had to look at some very technical things in a food and beverage front. You had to rely on batching of cocktails, or you had to partner with different companies that may uh, take a lot of the prep work out of your food and culinary uh, arena. They would handle a lot of the prep work, and you would get the product delivered, and it's still high quality product, but it was just a
Mm-hmm.
lot easier to prepare. On the room side or the marketing or sales side, we had to really get dialed in on digital marketing and your CRM, and start making sure that those processes were seamless, streamlined, effective. Uh, but I'll tell you that one mistake that a lot of people made coming out of COVID in the
Yeah.
hotel world, restaurant and bar world, was chasing the new shiny object. And a lot of that was all of a sudden there were many, many, many forms of contactless, touchless payments. There are many, many
Yeah.
forms of boosting your ad space online and so on and so forth. And everyone, I saw people jumping from product to product, and they kind of got in their own way because they were chasing the new shiny product. So I would guard any operator against doing that, and really just taking a beat, take a breath, do your proper analysis, and see which systems and processes you'd like to go with.
Interesting to know that how the industry is preparing for its future.
So, how the industry is preparing for its future. Uh, Look, we no longer use the term the new reality or anything like that. It's 2023. We're full speed ahead. We're flying, you know, firing on all cylinders. In terms of preparing for its future, I think that from a full service hotel or for full service restaurant standpoint, a big competitor right now are the quick service restaurants, or some of the select service hotels, because pricing has really gone up through the roof due to supply chain, due to air travel, so on and so forth. So we're not seeing as much. I I sense that we're almost at the peak of price elasticity, and
Mm-hmm.
meaning how much we can charge a guest. And I sense we're going to see a little bit of correction there. So in terms of how we're planning for the future, uh, is hitting that sweet spot of maximizing volume with either that plateaued or slight dip uh, in check average or room rate or amenities rate, whatever the case may be, no matter what segment you're in. A great blessing, though, coming out of this is now we're seeing a big impact. And speaking about hotels, namely
Mm-hmm.
right or mainly right now,
Mm-hmm.
seeing a great comeback in corporate and social events, which largely disappeared for 2 years. So we're back. So we're back in action with that, and that adds a whole another layer of great strategy that can be applied, and it was applied for 2023. But moving forward, we're able to really look at those shoulder months or early to midweek days in hotels or restaurants for that matter,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and try to slot in those groups with more ease and more options, I guess, really, because everybody's back traveling. There was quite a stretch there, where for corporate groups, namely,
Mm-hmm.
we had to focus on the hybrid meetings. Some people in person, some people remote dial in. That clearly still exists, but we are seeing larger, uh, citywides or corporate conferences, social outings. Uh, with my present company, with three resorts of different sizes and shapes, and capabilities, frankly, just based on size in two different states and three different cities. So we actually recently encountered a corporation who broke up their conference in 3 different sections and sent
Mm-hmm.
their, well, they didn't send them yet. We booked it, and they're
Mm-hmm.
sending their whole corporate group to 3 different of our properties, which is pretty cool. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, I think that's a good indicator of where we're heading.
You talk about the events and conferences. So, which hospitality conference do you enjoy attending the most?
Well, I'll mention a couple, a couple that are personal, a couple that are professional, probably.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, so I've had the great opportunity of presenting at BITAC,
Yeah.
uh, and have attended a couple of times and been a panelist and presenter and such. And for that
Mm-hmm.
one, that's a very good opportunity to network with some of the latest trends, whether it be technology or service or whatever the case may be. And it's a fantastic networking opportunity. I typically
Mm-hmm.
attend the one that's in San Diego, uh, the National Restaurant Association in Chicago. That's a fantastic one, and that's where you really get to see a lot of the trends in small wares, equipment, FF&E, things along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I try not to ever miss Aspen Food and Wine Fest. That's just a fantastic networking opportunity, but also some personal enjoyment out of that one as well.
You are currently Vice President of Operation at Vivamee Hospitality. Can you give us an overview about Vivamee Hospitality, what is its focus, and the strategies are being developed for new properties to enhance the guest experience?
Yeah, fantastic. Love to. So Viva May, so husband and wife team that are the owners, and they took the words Vive and Ame, two French words, and
Yeah.
combined them, and literally it translates as revive the soul.
Mhm.
So from a service component, we look at reviving the souls, if you will, of our guests, our teammates, and our buildings. Now, what does that look like? Uh, the business model is to purchase distressed properties with historic stories,
Mhm.
uh, and you know, but you know, buy them at a discounted price, basically, and then um, insert or infuse a good amount of money into it to beautify the properties to create. So that's reviving the property, right? But it creates a better environment for the guests and the team members. All the while, we're pulling through the common thread of the history that exists in the 3 buildings themselves. Currently 3,
Mhm.
soon to be more, uh, and we firmly believe in consistently creating a better work environment, but
Mhm.
most importantly, a better guest journey, path, climate, environment. Choose your word, and uh, so far it's working. Now, from a business model standpoint, uh, all of our current properties uh, do significant wedding and event business. So we
Mhm.
do a large amount of catered events. A couple of our properties have uh, golf clubs as well. So that's a, a wonderful community to have attached to our business model as well. So we are very much a food and beverage and guest experience focused building uh, company. Sorry, we we do have hotel rooms at each of our resorts as well,
Mhm.
just a bit smaller side on the room side and more food and beverage focused.
Talking about the work environment, what are your strategies for effective team management to create a positive work environment, and how do you handle the challenges?
Yeah, it's so great. So I, I'll say that earlier in the conversation, we alluded to the fact that there's definitely a dearth or a shortfall of just people who want to work in our industry right now. So more than ever, uh, there is a focus on recruiting, but really it's the staff retention that's going to set you apart right now. Now, how do you retain
Mhm.
staff? Well, you have to have a clear vision for every role, and it doesn't matter what role it is. It can be a houseman, it can be the
Mhm.
general manager of the resort, it can be the vice president, whatever the case is. There has to be a clear vision of what that role is. We have to have a metric or a communication pattern with every team member to let them know where they are today, where do they want to go, how do we get them there in their career. Because certainly with uh, it's almost like we hit a reset post COVID, and we had a lot of kind of greener team members in roles that they may or may not have ever had before. So we have to make sure that we have sound training principles. But what we're really finding as well is that everyone is thirsting for that career development path. Uh, so so that is one step to retention. The other one is, you know, every company has a mission statement or a core set of values posted on a a document somewhere in a back hallway or in an office. That's all well and good, but it's very clear to your team if you don't walk the walk. So if you are going to post those values or mission statement, it's absolutely critical that you show up every day and live those virtues, live those values. Otherwise, it won't take long for anyone to call BS on what you're doing, and uh, trust me, they're going to leave if you're walking around, saying do as I say, not as I do. That's counterproductive to growing out a team.
Yeah, agree, Bill. I like the way you have shared your vision and career part about your team members. One more thing, can you tell us some influencers' name who have been a source of motivation in building your career path?
Absolutely. So with great pride, I can certainly mention a few. I can tell you that uh, someone who's not quite famous or anything, but very impactful in my life was a gentleman named Kyle Williams. He was early on in my career, someone who kind of took me by my shoulders and got me on a straight path. In terms of other influencers, Steven Starr, pretty
Mhm.
well known restaurateur out of Philadelphia. Where I had the great fortune of working with him for a number of years, and he really I would say Kyle kind of taught me the importance of the business piece of it. Stephen really taught us all a lot about style, panache, attention to detail. Never settle for mediocrity, and wake up hungry every day to do better. And he was tremendous. I have a good friend and a pretty legendary chef named Chef Douglas Rodriguez, who he's not just a friend, but I always consider a mentor. And another one I would mention, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, is Iron Chef Jose Garces, with whom I had the good fortune of working with a couple of different times in my career. And
Mhm.
I usually joke and say we came up through the ranks together. He got famous, I didn't, but it's okay. No, but so I think
Yeah.
when thinking about leaders and mentors, uh, it's important to understand the value of the lessons that we learn from each person with whom we engage. So it doesn't always have to be a person in a level of seniority above you.
Mhm.
Your people you admire and frankly can mentor
Mhm.
can sometimes be people who report to you or be your colleagues. And I've had the good fortune of having a cross section of those.
Considering your vast industry experience, what advice can you suggest to young professionals looking to start their career in this industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I would say a little bit of what I just said. Never settle. Always keep working. You have to come in hungry every day. Um, you have to be able to embrace the lifestyle, because you are going to be working hours that some of your friends might not be working. We do work when other people don't, but it's okay. We also get off when other people don't. So it's, there's a a balance there. But truly, the advice I would give is to understand that there are two types of people in the world, in my firm opinion, and there are those who like to go to the party and those who like to throw the party. I've always liked to throw the party better than go to one. And
Okay.
if you embrace that, and what I mean by that is, if you come to my house, you're not going to want for anything. And if
Mm-hmm.
you come to my hotel or restaurant or resort or golf course,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to make sure I walk that space every day. Going to make sure that every stone is not left unturned, and so on and so forth. Make sure that there's great attention to detail. But you're going to have that mentality and that mindset if you want to continue to be successful. I would also say,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion, it's very helpful if you're open to geographic relocation, to really get a different mindset and view of some best practices or trends, or just to see what is going on in other cities and coasts or countries or whatever the case may be. So I
Mm-hmm.
would recommend that. It's not You're not locked into that. There are plenty of good cases of people who stay in one position their whole lives and they do a great job. But I would highly encourage travel and get out there and just see how different people do it, and ask questions, and we all we all borrow from each other in this industry, because it's there's so many talented, wonderful people out there that why wouldn't I want to borrow some of the cool things I've seen them do, and hopefully a little bit of that's reciprocated, hopefully. But yeah, I love this business. I hope those of you watching and listening buy in, get into it, and just dig in, and because it can be incredibly rewarding.
Bill, besides your job, what activities do you do enjoying a stress-free lifestyle?
Well, I wouldn't call it stress free. I'm a very proud dad of a young daughter who's 6, soon to be turning 7. So
Oh, wow.
as much time as I can spend with her doing daddy
Mm-hmm.
daughter things,
Mm-hmm.
that's what I love to do. I do love
Oh,
I do love to dine out, and stay at different hotels and such, and see exactly what I mentioned before,
yeah.
what other people are doing, what the trends are, what's working, what's not working, and just some golf time every now and then is nice as well. So if I can do all three of those things in the course of a month, I've had a pretty good month, I would say.
So, what do you enjoy most about playing golf?
No, that it's well, you're outside. It's a
Yeah.
nice way to disconnect. Hopefully be able to turn your phone off for 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, whatever the case is. Uh, Maybe enjoy a cold beverage on a nice sunny day, but it's a challenge against yourself. You're not
Mm-hmm.
playing against anyone else. You're challenging yourself, and there's no one else to blame out when you're out there besides you. If you hit it straight, hit it left, hit it short, whatever the case is, that's you have to look at yourself. Yeah, so it's a great way to spend a day, though.
Well, first of all, I would like to ask that our industry, the hospitality industry, the success of any hotel is dependent on the guest experience. So, how much do you think technology is important for a great guest experience?
So great question. A couple key pieces to it. Technology is incredibly important in this day and age to add to the seamlessness of the guest journey from initial contact through final payment, and actually a follow-up thank you. And different components of technology can be utilized all the way through. So I look at just the seamlessness of the process of the guest journey. Uh, technology plays a huge part in it. A piece that I think quite often gets overlooked and can be IT related, or it can be more manual, is actually in a resort or hotel environment. All too often, the transfer of information and or wayfinding, I think, are two areas that very much get left behind in certain hotels and resorts. It can really make or break your experience, whether it's knowing what the next cool event at the resort is going on, and see either you get a text message or there's a good display sign somewhere, or whatever the case is, or an email, whatever it is. All those things should be teed up and automated for all guests on your property. But then how many times have we all been somewhere and we couldn't find our damn way there, and you show up 10 minutes late to the one event you really wanted to go to, and you're like, oh man, I walked the entire opposite way. So that's probably not the thing that most people call out. But I'll say those couple of things are very important to the guests. Uh, and it's critically important from a sales perspective, from both a business operator, but also the guest who's booking, to have that very quick 1 or 2 click experience to get to the site, the landing page, or the microsite, or whatever the case might be, for what product it is that you're trying to book or to schedule. So whether it's booking the room, booking a wedding, time at the spa. I've seen way too many clunky websites. It's 2023. Like, come on, guys, you got to do better. You can't have 6, 7 clicks just to get to an information page, and then ask a guest to fill out an information page to be sent in to hopefully get a call back. You're missing a massive sales opportunity there, because you're not doing right by the guest. So I know I'm talking about the sales opportunity from a business perspective, but you're only missing out on it because you didn't do right by the guest, and that's it. There's way too many opportunities out there to do better in that arena.
And also, Bill, the thing with technology is that it progresses so rapidly, especially nowadays. So, how do you think the hoteliers who are trying to build a new hotel or revamping an existing property, because this is your specialty, revamping distressed properties, so how can they ensure that the technology infrastructure that they are laying is future proof and will cater to the future technologies?
Yeah, great question. So I alluded to this a little bit earlier in saying that, it's dangerous to chase the new shiny object. What I mean by that is, I don't care what system you're rolling out. It could be a payroll system. It could be a work order process for engineering, whatever the case is. Definitely do your due diligence. I would always get at least 3 companies competing, and do a formal RFP. Uh, you know, they should present to you. They should be able to speak to each other's capabilities, because if they are at the head of their industry, then they very well should know the capabilities of their competitors. So they should be able to speak to you about what separates them, but they should also be able to tell you what they're not quite as good at as their competitors. So it does cut both ways there, and don't be afraid to ask the hard questions, and don't sign too long of a contract. I've taken over some properties and they were locked into a 5 or 7 year contract. With the rate with which, or rapidity with which, technology changes, I would highly guard against anything longer than a 2 year contract, because something better is going to come along. And by the time you get it firmly rolled out, um, you may have already missed a window to move on to something else, or by the time you roll it out, you might realize then that you messed up, and maybe you should have gone with something that was a bit more of a legacy kind of platform, as opposed to the newer platform, because it's been tried and true. So not everything that's old in technology is broken. Not everything that's old in technology is bad. Not everything that's new in technology is better. You just have to test it for yourself and weigh those competing platforms against each other.
Well, you have mentioned it a couple of times now that don't chase after the new shiny object. So, considering that we see that there is a new trend in the hospitality industry or any industry, as per se, that robotics and AI is the new big thing. You have talked about staff shortages. So, we talk to the hoteliers, and they're like, robotics is the answer to staff shortages. Robotics is the answer to great guest experience. AI is the answer for better guest experience. So, do you think that this is a very long term or sustainable plan, or is this just a new shiny thing?
It's a great question. I'm going to answer that in a couple of ways. So, so think about housekeeping. I know in terms of like robotics, for instance, we've seen the automatic kind of floor cleaners and such that are utilized in some hotels, and some environments they work, some they don't. If you have a very elegant, more boutique style hotel, could be an inn, maybe with, 40 rooms or something. It would be weird if you put something like that in there. You still want that human touch. But I've seen them work in giant 1,000-room conference center hotels, and it's all business travelers, and they're like, oh, okay, that's cool, whatever. I don't care who sweeps the floor. Now, the other part of that, I think, was AI. I mean, I don't think that any of us understand what the ultimate future of AI is going to be. I can just say that if you're not utilizing it in your digital marketing and your guest recovery, and or your follow through on a sales component, you're kind of missing a boat. There should be some element of it to whether it's to qualify leads, to send thank yous, to keep people on the line until somebody live can come in and talk to them, whatever the case is. There are many different utilizations right now, but don't be scared of it. Just, you know, like I said before, all new technology isn't applicable across all platforms. You just have to be um, aware and informed as to where to apply that particular new, what we'll say, AI or robotics for the case of this conversation. But pick the platform uh, with the corresponding property level wisely, and don't just keep plug and playing it just because it exists.
And you talked earlier. You talked about the pricing, because hospitality needs to reconsider what price point they can charge nowadays because of the competition and everything. So, do you think technology can help, like big data or real time data, in helping with dynamic pricing? And you don't rather than to project for a long term, you devise pricing in the real time with the help of technology.
Well, 100%, and this is not a new idea or anything like that, but absolutely on the hotel side, in terms of revenue management on rooms, it wasn't that long ago that revenue managers were really sitting there watching, kind of an algorithm of competing properties, and they had to like turn dials up and down on their own room rates in real time, or they didn't have a good night's sleep because they didn't know, which way it was trending before they went to bed. So, you know, it's pretty standard, or should be standard now, that you do have some sort of software that is assisting you in, like I said, pulling those levers or turning dials, whichever one you want to say, uh, to make sure that, especially within your local comp set, that you are hitting your sweet spot, because ultimately your guest satisfaction scores are going to show it. Your star report is going to show it. You may be leaving a tremendous amount of money on the table because you're overcharging or you're undercharging. So yeah, absolutely, you should have that software in play. And frankly, uh, doesn't happen the same way on the restaurant side, but there are different avenues now to pursue to do at least a few time a year comp set analysis for your banquet and catering packages, your wedding packages, your restaurant check averages and such, and you really should keep updating. I don't want to call out any particular companies. I'm not doing a free promotion here, but you should be utilizing some software to make sure your density reports are updated, that you are vetting out the price sensitivity within market and where you stand against it, and many other uses for it. Your wage watch comparisons that are out there to make sure that you're paying competitively versus your comp set, which I don't think enough people do. You can go to three hotels next to each other, and sometimes there's an outlier who's they can't understand why they're understaffed and they're paying people $5 less an hour than the person next door, and that's just simple awareness. And they don't even have to they don't even have to leave their building. They could log into to a program and find out what that information is. So yeah, I highly recommend utilize all those channels.
In the last, Bill, I would like to ask regarding the alternate accommodation services like Airbnb. Do you think they are a challenge to the hospitality industry, or are they complementing the hospitality industry?
Yeah, so it definitely hurt in 2020, 2021, and 2022. I think we're coming out of the Airbnb model, but I say that I'm going to temper that statement a bit because we are starting to see a bit more return to extended stays uh, in some hotels, but also what we're seeing, especially in the resort environment and golf community environment, is just it's really it's almost a semantic change in that instead of labeling it Airbnbs, they are cottages for rent or purchase or what have you. So I think the moniker Airbnb is being sunsetted a bit, but the extended stay model is there. That's not going anywhere. It just depends on the structure that's being rented, and certainly urban versus rural environments and how much land you have and such. But um, no, I think the term Airbnb or VRBO, I think that's not really hurting the hotels as much future forward as it did for that 3-year period.
So that brings us to end of our podcast. Thank you so much for being on our podcast, and it was
Okay.
an absolute pleasure having you.
It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for the consideration and the thoughtful conversation. So I appreciate it.
Thank you once again, Bill, for joining our podcast. Thanks for watching us. Hope you liked today's episode. See you with another guest. Till then, take care and goodbye.